all of you. I'm very happy to be here, though I must say I'm a bit daunted after such a warm and comprehensive introduction. Plus, I think I've gotten two bouquets, one shawl, one memento, and one gift hamper, and I haven't started speaking yet. So that's a lot of expectation to fulfill. But let me start by paying my respects and acknowledging the correspondent, Sister Aruna George, the principal, Sister Annie Thomas, the headmistress of the junior section, Sister Ruth Mary, the sister in charge of the nursery section, Sister Nilima, the alumni coordinator, Sister Sabina Patros, my fellow chief guests, the Honorable Peter Alphonse, who has served many times in the Assembly, in the Parliament, and is now Chairman of the Minorities Commission, and the many distinguished guests here. I see my friend, the eminent director, Mr. Amudan, and parents, and most of all, the students who are graduating this year. I had a couple of events today, so I didn't have time to change, so I didn't intend to come particularly in this outfit. But earlier today, I was at the Loyola College giving away degrees to about 400 people who had graduated from the College of Education. And I was reminded, it's just down the road, I think. I had done something else, came back. And about 4 or 5 days ago, I was at another college down the other side of the road, the Women's Christian College, at some function. And it's just, I think, an indication of the tremendous contribution, both of this order, but broadly of Christian missionaries in general, going back in this case 100 years, going back in other cases 200 years. I've been to colleges established by missionaries in Tirunelveli, in Kanyakumari, in Trichy, in Madurai, and immensely contributed to not just the education of our citizens, but the breadth of education across all genders, all communities, ensuring that we had inclusive access. I've had chance to remark about this before, but I think it's worth repeating again and again in the kind of political environment we live in today, where there's a lot of othering and a lot of separating and polarizing. We must remember that what makes us who we are is this integration, that we learn from the best, we get the goodwill of the best, and we become the best by being all together as one. And it's particularly true in Tamil Nadu. I think it's true across India as well. In fact, I'll make one other comment, which I was reminded of when I was sitting in the audience here. I went to Oxford University about 10 years ago when I was a managing director at Standard Chartered Bank. I was getting promoted from managing director to senior managing director, and they had some kind of agreement between my bank and Oxford to run a 1 week or 10-day leadership program to help make the transition to greater responsibility. And I remember by coincidence that I happened to sit in the very college where my grandfather had studied 100 years ago. So I was there like 2013. My grandfather had been there 1912 to 1915 at Jesus College, Oxford. And I sat in the chapel and they went through some training using music and all that, and then we went out in the evening. And many of those institutions are 100, 200 years old. And suddenly occurred to me that actually the Dravidian movement itself, the Justice Party, benefited tremendously from the education that many of its leaders got in Oxford, in Cambridge, in the case of my grandfather in the bar after that at the Inner Temple in London. Because you see, all these institutions were run by the church back in the day. And as part of their core education, they all were taught the scriptures and the values and the morality that came from it. And I have this clear understanding now that the values of those institutions translated significantly into the creation of the social justice movement which was both libertarian but also very liberal. And those values were imparted by the education at Oxford and Cambridge by the church run colleges. So actually, it was otherwise unfathomable to me why people, mostly, as Perarinyar Anna said, the Justice Party had this unique history where people, mostly at the top of the pyramid, spent their political capital uh, agitating and fighting for the rights of the people at the bottom of the pyramid. It's very rare. Most people only talk their own book. If I'm on the top, I talk capitalism. If I'm on the bottom, I talk communism. So it's very rare to find people who are themselves well entrenched, then say, tear down the order and make everybody equal. And I think the education that the church run colleges gave in those days, a century plus ago, was a great contributor. So, for those reasons, I think I'm always happy that we continue the tradition of focusing on education, in particular of ensuring equal access to education, high quality education, and more specifically ensuring that our girls become really educated women. That might be the single defining characteristic of Tamil Nadu that helps us today. Uh, The redeeming feature, I say again, relative to almost any part in this country, relative to the world, is how equitable we try to be. Maybe we don't get there all the time, but we try to be. And there will never be a day that a Gujarat can compete with a Tamil Nadu as long as 90% of our girls at 18 have graduated high school and only 50% have done so in Gujarat. It matters a lot. I was happy to come for that reason. I must confess, I've driven by this road a few times in my life. I didn't even realize there was a school here, so I learned something new today. And I had multiple events today, and I probably would not have been able to make the time for this. But for two reasons. One, my good friend Amudan called me and said that I had to come, and I work very closely with him on multiple things that are in the public interest and the social good. So I had to accept his request. The second is a bit of a lesson for us all, I think. Because if you ask me why I get called so much, is that I represent some alternative version or some hope that there is room for people like me in the public space, and that there is room for people with high levels of education to be successful at grassroots politics, like I have been, being elected MLA multiple times with increasing margin. And so I'm keen that I should continue to prove that to be true, and I go to a lot of these functions for that reason. Because I think the one thing that I would take away as a lesson from my life, I'm going to be 60 in 3 years, so I'm pretty old. But I've had the luxury of many careers, many degrees in many countries, many universities. I was relatively, privileged on birth, so I didn't have to worry too much about working for a living. And so I had this great luxury of taking the learning and life as it came. And what that has taught me is the incredible value of education in its broadest sense, not just what you learn in school, what you learn from people, what you learn from experiences. If I look back at my life, I think, some of the most valuable learning I got came out of relatively disastrous tragedies. I happened to be at the World Trade Center on September 11th when the planes hit the building. What happened in the course of those 2 or 3 days transformed my thinking about life, about priorities, about what is important, about permanence or the lack of permanence. It almost set me up in a way where about 8 years later or 7 years later, where I was running two large companies for Lehman Brothers in Mumbai, when the holding company had to declare bankruptcy and restructuring. And I think, again, those 30 days after the bankruptcy declaration, I probably learned more about life, about human nature, about dealing with uncertainty, dealing with volatility than I had in any 5 years before that. So sometimes the learning comes fast, sometimes it comes slow, sometimes it comes out of good events, sometimes it comes out of difficult circumstances. But the key, I think, at least for me, is to continuously keep learning. And so this might be a bit of a depressing message for all of you who are finishing school, thinking that you're finishing something. Actually, it's the beginning of a lot of things. And I'm sure that many of you will go on to do not one, but multiple degrees, maybe like me, in different disciplines. And so your learning should be and ought to be a lifelong journey. The reason it should be that is because the world is changing all the time. And the only kind of solid guarantee or insurance you can carry with you is what you have learned and the skills you have developed and the understanding you have got and the humanity, hopefully, that you evolve in you in your ability to adapt with and deal with and relate to people of different types, different levels, different societies, different cultures, different countries. This lesson, I think, that lifelong student, lifelong learning is the only kind of wealth from which you can never be separated. Otherwise, markets crash, laws change, things get nationalized. The World Trade Center falls down one day. 150-year-old bank worth $80 billion one year is worth zero the next year. Everything is impermanent. But what you have in you and who you are, you keep strengthening that, and that is something that nobody can ever take from you. And will always be your strength, your resource, your last resort, and you can deal with any situation when you have something like that in you. On a very light note, I'll say some of you must be really good scorers. I congratulate you. Uh, I wish you well to continue in your academic excellence, but don't forsake developing other aspects of your life or personality just to be the top ranker or just to keep scoring well. Life has got too many dimensions and too many skills are important. And in my experience, though academic progress or grades have been reasonable predictors, they haven't nearly been comprehensive predictors of who gets to live well and who gets to have a happy life. So try to have a broader life. For the rest of you who, like me, didn't pay that much attention, at the risk of offending the principal and the correspondent, I must say that I was actually a notorious student. I got good grades because I was relatively smart, but I was breaking every rule in the book. I went to boarding school. I was always kind of doing a lot of things I shouldn't have. And if I look back at my life now, I think, those of us who were always thinking outside the box, who were always trying to find that edge, actually have turned out quite well in life. So if you are not one of the best students with the best grades, doesn't matter, don't stress it. Life is unpredictable. There are many ways to success, and there are many variables that go into how your life evolves. So, of course, try your best. Of course, make your parents proud. Don't let them be upset that you're not doing good work. But, you get what you get, and other things in life will evolve in ways you can't predict. So, in a way, it's a bit strange. I was at an event in the Nilgiris, and one of my classmates from boarding school, who had been the head boy of the school, the most disciplined, the most promising, the most kind of upright student to be called head boy in a military boarding school. And I was a troublemaker, right? And so we had this conference, and he was the organizer. He had retired from corporate life, and he was trying to bring some community engagement to rejuvenating the nature and the ecosystem of the Nilgiris and trying to prevent some of the degradation. And at that time, I was the minister for, among other things, something called the Special Area Development Program, which allocates money and tries to help people in tribal areas like the Nilgiris or Yelagiri or Kollimalai or Kodaikanal. And so the students of our school, the current students of our school had made a presentation, and some of them were, the head boy type, and some of them were my type. And so I thought I should uh, let them know. I said, just so you all know, the head boy is the one who's organizing the conference and asking for support, and the truant is the minister who's going to allocate the funds. So, life takes different paths. Don't worry if you're not the best, right? So, with that, let me congratulate all of you. Brilliant speech by the valedictorian of the journey that you have been through. I'm sure that she was representative of the evolution of all of you. The school surely played a part. Your parents surely played a part. You all have come up in your own unique way. For the rest of your life, maintain that individuality. Don't waste your time comparing yourself to others. Every life is different. Every path is different. Be the best that you can be, that you want to be, and don't worry too much about other people's expectations or appreciation or lack of it. You'll go on to do many wonderful things. I'm very happy that I got to spend this special day with you. I wish all of you the best of luck in your upcoming exams and in your college applications and career. And I wish all of you and your families a very bright and happy future. Thank you very much.